So Abram departed as the Lord had spoken unto him. And Lot went with him, and Abram was 75 years old when he departed out of Haran. God told Abraham to get away from three things. Three things he had to get away from. He had to get away from his country. He had to get away from his kindred, meaning his people. And then thirdly, from his father's house. Wait a minute. He had to get away from his kindred, but I thought his kindred and his people was the same, it was the same thing. But nobody says, no, you got to get away from your kindred, those things that are kin, those things that are familiar. Now, out of the word kindred, you also have the word kin. Kin. Now, the word kin comes out of the word, or one of those Hebrew and Latin Greek words, relation, like relationship. Relationship. Re means do over. The word lation means akin. It means to be in relationship with. It means to be a relative of. It also means intercourse. Get away from those that you are in intercourse with, in a course of conversation, an emotional relationship, a course of things. Relation, relationship. Those that you are akin to, those that you are familiar with, those that you are family related at some aspect to. But then he says, you must get away from your father's household. Meaning that you must get away from your grandfather, the father of Abraham, Abraham's father. You must get away from that bloodline. Because if you stay here, it can affect your life and prohibit what I'm going to do in your life. It's going to help you all today. So how do we deal with faulty human foundations? We see that God is now saying that I must separate you, that I must call you unto myself. Before I can deal with you, Abram, I need you to get out of your country. I need you to get away from your kindred. And I need you to get away and get out of your father's house. There must be some form of a separation. But we also see that why would God begin to speak to this man by the name of Abram? We do know that in Genesis chapter 11, before we get into Jesus, to God beginning to speak to him, we do know that his wife was barren. And I'm going to go over there and look at that verse of scripture. We do know that in Genesis chapter 11 and verse 28 it says, and Haran died before his father Terah in the land of his nativity, and of the Chaldees, and Abram and Noah took them wives. The name of Abram's wife was Sarai, and the name of Noah's wife Milcah, the daughter of Haran, the father of Milcah, and the father of Ishkar. But it jumps into something that seems so dramatic. It says, but Sarai was barren. She had no child. And Terah took Abram his son, and Lot the son of Haran, his son's son, and Sarai, his daughter-in-law, his son's Abram's wife, and they went forth with them from Ur of the Chaldees to go into the land of Canaan, and they came unto Haran and dwelt there. And the days of Terah were 205 years, and Terah died in Haran. We We don't get a whole lot more of attention or information concerning Abram. He's mentioned here. We go down to some other verses. We see in verse 9, therefore is a name called Babel, because the Lord did there confound the language. So we understand that that this whole lineage here, and that he is coming out of. We don't have a whole lot of information concerning Abram. But we do understand that his wife was barren, and that her barrenness could have been connected to the house that she was connected to. We see, and we don't hear a whole lot concerning Abraham prior to that, and then why would God say to Abram to go from your land in chapter 12? What was so special about Abram that God would choose to speak to this man where there is no fruitfulness in his life? His wife is barren. They have no children. Why would God speak to him? And why would God tell him to go from your land? And why would God choose Abram to Abram? Why would God choose him? And therefore, when God spoke to him, when he was 70 or something years old, it was certainly not because of a great career of righteousness which Abram had previously followed. Even to Abraham, we find that subsequently, God spoke only 9 times more, as reported even in the Torah. And the Torah is the 5 books of Moses. Moses wrote Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy. The Pentateuch, the Torah, the 5 books. The fact that God spoke to Abraham demonstrates that Abraham had attained a very great degree of perfection, which had caused him to be singled out from all of mankind. But to choose a man that is barren, who has no children, empty, nothing coming out of his loins, no fruit coming out of his loins. Why would God choose this man whose wife is barren? Well, let's head over to Nehemiah chapter 9 and verse 7. Hope y'all stay with me today, because it's going to be a good one today. And we see in Nehemiah chapter 9 verse 7, and it says, Thou art the Lord, the God, who didst choose Abram, and broughteth him forth out of Ur of the Chaldees, and gaveth him the name of Abraham. Verse 8. So we find out now, why did God choose this man by the name of Abram? What was so special about him? Well, verse 8 says, And foundeth his heart faithful before thee, and madeth a covenant with him to give the land of the Canaanites, the Hittites, the Amorites, and the Perizzites, and the Jebusites, and the Gershishites, to give it, I say, to his seed, and has performed thy words, for thou art righteous. And I question, so God, well, why are you choosing the man? Until the Lord began to show me in scriptures, well, this is why he chose Abraham. And so the fact that God spoke to Abraham demonstrates that Abraham had attained a great degree of perfection, which caused him to be singled out. So we see Genesis 22 and verses 1 through 13 gives us a clue also why God chose Abram. It's because of his obedience again. We see the whole scenario concerning his son. He gets a promise later on that he's going to have a son, and he's going to do some particular things. But yet, prior to that, there's some other things. We're going to go back and look at Genesis chapter 15 and look at some things as well. And so it says, And it came to pass after these things that God did tempt Abraham. God, Oh, God did tempt Abraham and said unto him, Abraham, and he says, behold, here I am. And he says, take now thy son, thy only son Isaac, whom thou lovest, and get thee into the land of Moriah, and offer him therefore a burnt offering upon one of the mountains which I would tell thee of. And Abraham rose up early in the morning, hold on now, and he saddled his ass, and took two of his young men with him, and Isaac his son, and clave the wood for the burnt offering, and rose up and went unto the place of which God had told him. Then on the third day Abraham lifted up his eyes, and he saw the place afar. May God open up your eyes. May you lift up your eyes today.